The Innovator's Dilemma by Clayton Christensen. Welcome to my channel. My name is Samuel and I want to make self-growth normal. If you want to make self-growth normal, because I don't want to do it alone, and who doesn't want to make self-growth normal, then make sure to smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm because it helps with ranking and all this other stuff, and I really appreciate it because so much work goes into making these videos. Overall, this is a more technical business book. It is technical. If you don't know that much about business, don't check it out. I mean, you can if you want to, but it was written by a Harvard professor. So to me, it was, I review all these different business books, but to me, books like this are like they're like sit down, be humble types of stuff. You know what I mean? Spectacular book. I learned a ton of stuff. But the last business book I listened to written by Harvard professors was Blue Ocean Strategy, and that book is whacked. And these books usually end up forcing me to look up business term definitions, terms like, what was it? There were some of these: gross margin, cost structure, low labor cost, value network. What is a value network? These are the questions I was asking myself. But in the beginning, the author asks, why is successful business, why is that so difficult to sustain? I have a slew of heroes I look up to. One of them is Jeff Bezos, the Amazon founder. This is a favorite book of his. Probably the 99% at least of the reason I even bothered getting it. He's an extremely unconventional thinker. But anyway, the author says that around the tech boom, the most successful companies, the best practitioners of best practice, as he puts it, were in the middle of the pack, or worse, the back of it, about a decade or two later. And what often causes this lagging behind are two principles always taught in business schools: that you should always listen to and respond to the needs of your best customers, and that you should always invest most of your money into the innovations that produce the highest returns. But these two principles in practice ultimately sow the seeds of every successful company's demise eventually. And this is how doing the right thing becomes the wrong thing. There are times when it's actually the right thing to ignore what customers are saying, when it's the right thing to invest more money into the less yielding technologies. And the book talks all about this. It also talks about disruption. I'm not really sure I know the difference between what I just said and disruption, but it talks about it abundantly. Podcasts, for example, are blowing up like crazy right now. I relate this to way more modern times. Anyone my age, I'm 22 or younger, you probably understand it very well. Maybe even older. An app that's blowing up right now is called Anchor. Anchor. It's gonna be the biggest podcast app according to Gary Vaynerchuk, digital marketing expert. He's known for a lot of things, but his uncanny ability to predict this like successful tech startups based on their priorities and maybe his intuition is the biggest asset of his that will never, I'm under the impression, falter and cease to impress me. Other companies than Anchor that arrive later to the podcast market will not be as successful in podcasting until one company creates a totally new market out of podcasting itself. And then Anchor, it'll be hard for them to keep up with that market as it overtakes podcasting. Maybe it won't. If you look at Spotify versus Apple Music, but, well, Apple is, it's Apple. But still, the most robust disruption period, at least in the last maybe half century, was the little history of the disk drive industry, which the author continuously finds himself going back to. But I think that's because that's where a huge leap occurred in terms of exponential, this is where as the physical size got smaller of the disk drives, its memory capacity grew larger. And this is just technology is just way too much. It's becoming way too much for a lot of these older companies to be able to keep up with, let alone companies in general. Apparently, working harder or smarter and being a visionary does not solve the problem. The resource allocation process involves thousands of decisions, some subtle and some explicit, made every day by hundreds of people about how their time in the company's money ought to be spent. Even when a senior manager decides to pursue a disruptive technology, the people in the organization are likely to ignore it, or at best cooperate reluctantly if it doesn't fit their model of what it takes to succeed as an organization and as individuals within one. So the first half is about how great companies fail as a result of this whole approach, and the second half is about managing disruptive technological change. I feel vaguely like a lot of books have made this obvious to me, but this book is like particularly just, it's striking, it's illuminating compared to those. This dude was like, here, no one knows. Some people do, but the ones who don't, you can pee your pants now while we steal the wallets of your customers and your competitions at that. In the second half, it's said that a common problem with managers at some point or another is whether to be a leader or follower when it comes to innovation. And if someone told me that, I'd be like,
why would you want to be a follower when it comes to innovation?
well, volumes have been written about first mover advantages and an offsetting amount on the wisdom of waiting until the innovation's major risks have been resolved by the pioneering firms. In other words, waiting for all the money and energy and time and stress and everything to be spent on figuring out what works and what does not, so that you can learn from those mistakes and just do your thing. However, if you know about the history of, Amazon is a quintessential example. The pioneers will constantly win. This is measuring the risk of failing versus, and that's where this is something that I feel like goes over so many people's heads. The risk of failing while pursuing a new market versus the risk of entering a place where there are way too many competitors to even bother. I know it sounds like common sense that small markets do not fulfill the growth requirements of large companies, but it makes me wonder, like, what constitutes a large market opportunity in 2019 that these companies are targeting? What kind of problems are they looking to solve that they haven't already? Obviously, when they innovate, because the smaller sort of industries that come out of that, I feel like is probably like the biggest percent of people who watch my videos, like podcasters or like people who are working on like developments for like Alexa skills. Those are what a lot of people in general should be taking advantage of, in my opinion, at least to, at the very, very minimum, get by nowadays. And especially in the future. Like Chris Guillebeau said in Side Hustle, basically by pursuing one of those or other internet-related side ventures, you are pursuing the new job security. Quotes. As in many of life's most challenging endeavors, there is a great value in coming to grips with the way the world works, and in managing innovative efforts in ways that accommodate such forces. Coping with the relentless onslaught of technology change was akin to trying to climb a mudslide down a hill. You have to scramble with everything you've got to stay on top of it, and if you ever once stop to catch your breath, you get buried. If the US steel industry were as productive in tons per man hour as it is in rhetoric problem, it would be a top-notch performer. There is a big difference between the failure of an idea and the failure of a firm. What goes up can't go down. Direction 1. The author says this book is intended to help a wide range of managers, consultants, and academics in service businesses, high tech or low, in slowly evolving or rapidly evolving environments. So if that doesn't sound like it can help your situation out, I'm not sure why you wouldn't want this book. It's one of Jeff Bezos' favorite books. Come on. Direction 2. If you like this book, I recommend checking out Blue Ocean Strategy. It was very, very interesting. Some stuff in here reminded me of how to build a billion-dollar app in terms of the more like, what am I trying to say? The more mechanized, I feel like I've never been at such a loss for words before in my entire life. It's just like where technology and innovation and business, they all merge, and it's this explosion. And 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel while you're at it, for sure. The Innovator's Dilemma by Clayton Christensen. There's a link in the description if you guys want to check it out and read the reviews. That and all the other books I mentioned in this video if you want to check those out as well. If there are any other books that you guys want me to check out and review, please let me know in the comments below. Also let me know if you checked out this book and you liked it, but hey, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, because I don't get why people watch this far into my videos and they don't subscribe, but if you have subscribed and you want to turn it up just a notch and turn on that notification bell to receive a notification every time I drop a new video, that would mean the world to me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. You can find me everywhere and I will see you then.